The nightmare gripped Nathan Grant with such ferocity that he jolted upright, his body drenched in sweat despite the cool April air that drifted through the open window of his small ranch house. The images still burned in his mind, fire consuming everything he loved, screams piercing the night, and always the shadowy figure watching from the distance. For 3 years now, ever since returning from the war, sleep had been his enemy. Nathan swung his legs over the side of the bed, wincing as his bare feet touched the rough wooden floor. The year was 1873, and Wichita, Kansas, was finally beginning to prosper after years of struggle. The cattle drives were bringing in money, and the railroad had put the town on the map. But for Nathan, prosperity remained elusive, haunted as he was by the demons that visited him each night. He struck a match, lighting the small oil lamp beside his bed. The soft glow illuminated his sparse room of bed, a chest of drawers, and a single chair. At 32, Nathan had little to show for his years. The small cattle ranch he'd inherited from his father was barely keeping him afloat, and the nightmares were wearing him down, making it harder to function with each passing day. As the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, Nathan resigned himself to another day on little sleep. He dressed quickly in well-worn denim pants, a faded blue shirt, and his leather vest. His boots, scuffed but reliable, waited by the door. The final touch was his hat, a wide-brimmed Stetson that had seen better days but still kept the sun from his eyes. Outside, the world was coming alive. Nathan breathed in deeply, savoring the clean morning air as he made his way to the barn where his horse, a sturdy chestnut gelding named Copper, nickered softly at his approach. "Morning to you too," Nathan murmured, running a hand along the horse's neck. "At least one of us got some sleep." After tending to Copper and the rest of his small herd, Nathan decided to ride into town. He needed supplies, and perhaps the distraction would keep him awake. As he approached Wichita, he could see the town had already awakened. The mercantile was open, as was the blacksmith's forge. The sound of a hammer striking metal rang through the air. Nathan tied Copper to the hitching post outside the general store and stepped inside. The familiar smell of coffee, tobacco, and various sundries greeted him. "Morning, Nathan," called Howard Wilson, the proprietor. "You look like you've been dragged behind a horse." "Feel like it too," Nathan replied with a tired smile. "Just need some coffee, sugar, and a few other things." "Nightmares again?" Howard asked, his voice lowering in concern. Nathan nodded. It wasn't a secret in town that he suffered from them. Many of the men who'd returned from fighting had similar troubles, though few spoke of it openly. "Well, maybe I've got something to perk you up," Howard said. "Doc Thompson's daughter is back from back east. Came in yesterday on the afternoon train. Pretty as a picture and educated too." Nathan merely grunted in response. He had little interest in town gossip, especially regarding newcomers. Wichita had seen its fair share of Eastern folk lately, most looking to make a quick fortune before returning to their comfortable city lives. After gathering his supplies and settling his bill, Nathan stepped back out onto the wooden sidewalk. That's when he saw her, a woman in a simple but elegant blue dress, her chestnut hair pinned neatly beneath a small hat. She was struggling with several packages while trying to navigate the unpaved street without muddying her hem. Something about her caught his attention. It wasn't just that she was beautiful, though she certainly was, but there was a familiarity about her that Nathan couldn't place. As if sensing his gaze, she looked up, and their eyes met across the street. For a moment, the world around Nathan seemed to still. Those eyes, he knew those eyes. But from where? Before he could ponder it further, one of her packages slipped from her grasp. Without thinking, Nathan crossed the street in long strides. "Allow me, miss," he said, retrieving the fallen parcel from the dirt. "Thank you, sir," she replied, her voice carrying a hint of Eastern refinement, but with an underlying warmth that surprised him. "I'm afraid I've overestimated my carrying capacity." "Nathan Grant," he said, tipping his hat with his free hand. "Violet Summers," she answered with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Up close, he could see the faint shadows beneath them, suggesting she too might be acquainted with sleepless nights. "You're Dr. Thompson's daughter?" "Stepdaughter, actually," she corrected gently. "He married my mother 5 years ago. I've been attending school in Boston until recently. May I help you with your packages?" "Where are you headed?" "That's very kind. I'm going to my stepfather's house. It's just past the church on Maple Street. Nathan gathered the rest of her packages, balancing them easily in his arms. I'll walk with you if you don't mind. My horse could use the rest anyway. As they walked, Nathan found himself strangely comfortable in Violet's presence. She didn't fill the silence with needless chatter, and when she did speak, her words were thoughtful. So, Mr. Grant, are you a native of Wichita? She asked. Born and raised just outside town. My father established our ranch in '49, before Kansas was even a state. I've been running it since he passed 3 years ago. I'm sorry for your loss, Violet said sincerely. Thank you. What brings you back to Wichita? Most folks I know are trying to get to places like Boston, not leave them. A shadow passed over her face. My mother passed away last winter. Consumption. And I found I needed a change of scenery. Nathan nodded, understanding more than she realized. Sometimes a place held too many memories. They reached Dr. Thompson's home, a modest but well-maintained 2-story house with a small garden in front. Nathan set the packages on the porch. Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Grant, Violet said, extending her hand. When their fingers touched, an odd sensation passed through Nathan like recognition, but deeper. He withdrew his hand quickly, unnerved by the feeling. My pleasure, Miss Summers. Welcome to Wichita. As Nathan walked back to retrieve Copper, he couldn't shake the strange feeling that had come over him when they touched. It was as if he knew her, though they'd never met before. Perhaps Howard was right. Maybe he did need something to distract him from his exhaustion. That night, as Nathan prepared for bed, he found himself thinking of Violet Summers. There was something in her eyes, a kind of weariness that mirrored his own. He extinguished the lamp and lay in the darkness, dreading the inevitable nightmares, but too tired to fight sleep any longer. The dream began as it always did. He was back on the battlefield, the air thick with gunpowder and the cries of wounded men. But then it shifted. This time, there was a house he didn't recognize, engulfed in flames. He could hear someone calling for help inside. As he ran toward the burning building, he saw a woman standing at an upstairs window, her face obscured by smoke, but those eyes were familiar. Nathan woke with a gasp, his heart hammering in his chest. The dream had been different this time, and somehow that was more unsettling than the familiar nightmare. He got up, splashed cold water on his face, and looked out the window at the stars. It would be dawn soon, and another day without proper rest stretched before him. Over the next few days, Nathan threw himself into work, hoping physical exhaustion might grant him a night of dreamless sleep. He mended fences, moved cattle to fresh pasture, and began repairs on the barn roof that had been leaking during spring rains. But each night, the nightmares returned, sometimes in their familiar form, sometimes featuring the burning house and those hauntingly familiar eyes. A week after meeting Violet, Nathan rode into town again, this time to visit the bank. As he was exiting, he nearly collided with someone on the steps. Mr. Grant, Violet said, steadying herself with a hand on his arm. We meet again. Miss Summers, Nathan replied, tipping his hat. My apologies for nearly running you down. No harm done, she assured him. Then, studying his face, she added, if you don't mind my saying so, you look exhausted. Nathan gave a rueful smile. Not sleeping well, I'm afraid. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps, or understanding. Nightmares? She asked quietly. The directness of her question startled him. Yes, he admitted, surprising himself with his honesty. For some time now. Violet glanced around, then lowered her voice. Mr. Grant, this may sound peculiar, but would you join me for tea at my stepfather's house tomorrow? There's something I'd like to discuss with you, and it's not suited for street conversation. Curiosity piqued, Nathan nodded. What time would be convenient? 3 o'clock? Dr. Thompson will be seeing patients, so we'll have some privacy. I'll be there, he promised, wondering what this mysterious woman could possibly want to discuss with him. The following afternoon, Nathan arrived at Dr. Thompson's house precisely at 3, having taken more care than usual with his appearance. He'd trimmed his beard and worn his newer shirt, feeling somewhat foolish for doing so. Violet greeted him at the door, looking lovely in a simple green dress that complemented her fair complexion. She led him to a small sitting room and poured tea from a china pot that seemed too delicate for the frontier town. Thank you for coming, Mr. Grant, she said, handing him a cup. "Nathan, please," he said. "Mr. Grant was my father." She smiled. "Then you must call me Violet." After a moment of polite small talk, Nathan's curiosity got the better of him. "You mentioned there was something you wanted to discuss?" Violet set down her teacup, her expression growing serious. "This will sound strange, and perhaps you'll think me mad, but—" She took a deep breath. "I believe we've been sharing the same nightmares." Nathan stared at her, certain he'd misheard. "I beg your pardon. For the past several months, I've been having recurring nightmares. At first, they were about a battlefield, though I've never seen one. Men dying, the smell of gunpowder and blood, a figure watching from a distance." She watched his face carefully as she spoke. "And more recently, a burning house with someone trapped inside." The cup nearly slipped from Nathan's grasp. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Is it?" Violet leaned forward. "When we met last week, I recognized you immediately, not from this life, but from my dreams. You were there, on that battlefield." Nathan set his cup down before he could drop it. "How can this be?" "I don't know," Violet admitted. "But when I saw you in town, I knew. And I think you felt it too, that strange sense of recognition." Nathan couldn't deny it. He had felt something when their eyes met, something that went beyond mere attraction. "But why? What does it mean?" "I've been researching phenomena like this at university," Violet said. "Some believe that souls can be connected across time and space, that dreams can be a way for them to communicate." "I'm not sure I believe in such things," Nathan said, though the evidence was sitting right in front of him. "Neither was I, until I started having these dreams. And then meeting you." She shook her head. "I can describe your nightmare in detail, Nathan. The way the air feels thick with smoke, how your heart races when you hear those screams, the way your hands shake afterward." Nathan stood abruptly, pacing the small room. It's overwhelming," Violet finished for him. "I know. It was for me too." "Why are you telling me this?" he asked, finally turning to face her. "Because I haven't slept properly in months, and I suspect neither have you. Because I believe there's a reason we're sharing these dreams, and perhaps if we understand it, we can find peace." She stood and approached him. "And because when I saw you, for the first time in a long while, I felt hope." The sincerity in her voice touched something deep within Nathan. He'd been alone with his nightmares for so long, believing no one could truly understand. Yet here was this woman who knew exactly what tormented him each night. "What do you suggest we do?" he asked. "First, I think we need to understand the dreams better. You were in the war, that explains the battlefield. But what about the burning house? Does it mean anything to you?" Nathan shook his head. "Nothing. I've never seen it before the dreams." "It means something to me," Violet said softly. "It's my childhood home in Boston. It burned down when I was 16. My father died in that fire." The revelation hit Nathan like a physical blow. "I'm so sorry, Violet." "It was 7 years ago," she said, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. "But lately, in my dreams, it's happening again. And I don't know why. Could it be a warning of some kind?" Nathan suggested. "Perhaps. Or maybe our minds are trying to process past traumas together." She sighed. "I don't have all the answers, Nathan, but I believe we're meant to help each other somehow." As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows through the windows, Nathan realized they'd been talking for hours. Violet had shared details of her life in Boston, her studies, and her relationship with her stepfather. In return, Nathan had opened up about his experiences in the war, his struggles with the ranch, and the toll the nightmares had taken on him. "I should go," he said reluctantly. "It's getting late." Violet walked him to the door. "Will you come again? Tomorrow, perhaps?" "I'd like that," Nathan said, surprised by how much he meant it. That night, for the first time in years, Nathan didn't dread sleep. Knowing someone else understood his torment brought an unexpected comfort. And as he drifted off, he wondered if Violet was thinking of him too. The nightmare came, as it always did, but this time it was different. He was still on the battlefield, still surrounded by death and destruction, but he wasn't alone. Violet stood beside him, her hand finding his amidst the chaos. "It's not real," she told him within the dream. "Not anymore." And suddenly, Nathan could see it for what it was, a memory, not a present danger. The shadowy figure that had haunted his dreams approached, and for the first time, Nathan could see its face, his own, twisted by guilt and grief. He woke with the first light of dawn, not in terror, but with a sense of revelation. The dream had changed, and with it, something inside him had shifted too. Later that day, as promised, Nathan returned to Violet's home. She greeted him with an excited expression. "Did you feel it last night?" she asked as soon as they were seated in the sitting room. "The dream, it was different." "You were there," Nathan said, still amazed by the experience. "Actually there, with me." "And you with me," Violet confirmed. "I've read theories about shared dreaming, but I never imagined experiencing it myself." She reached for her notebook on a nearby table. "I've been documenting everything: the dreams, our meetings, the changes." "Do you think we can control it?" Nathan asked. "The dreams, I mean. I believe so, with practice. Last night happened naturally, but perhaps we could learn to do it intentionally." Over the next several weeks, Nathan and Violet met regularly, sometimes at her home, sometimes at his ranch. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their lives, their fears, and their hopes. And each night, they would try to connect in their dreams, sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. The people of Wichita noticed the budding relationship between the reclusive rancher and the doctor's educated stepdaughter. Some approved, seeing how Nathan seemed more alive than he had in years. Others gossiped about the impropriety of their frequent meetings, though Dr. Thompson himself had given his blessing, having seen the positive effect Violet had on his stepdaughter's spirits. One evening in late May, Nathan invited Violet to dinner at his ranch. He'd spent the day cleaning the house and preparing a meal that, while simple, represented his best culinary efforts. As they sat on his porch afterward, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, Nathan found himself studying Violet's profile. "What are you thinking?" she asked, turning to catch his gaze. "That I'm grateful," he replied honestly. "For the first time in years, I don't fear sleep." Violet smiled, her eyes reflecting the sunset's glow. "I feel the same way. It's strange to think that just a month ago we were strangers." "Were we?" Nathan mused. "Sometimes I feel like I've known you forever." "Perhaps you have, in some way," Violet said, her voice soft. "The soul recognizes its own." As darkness fell, bringing with it a blanket of stars, Nathan walked Violet to her horse. He helped her mount, his hands lingering on her waist longer than necessary. "Until tomorrow," she said, looking down at him with a warmth that made his heart race. "Until our dreams," he replied. That night, they met again in the dream world. This time, they weren't on a battlefield or at a burning house, but in a peaceful meadow under a starlit sky. It felt so real that when Nathan woke the next morning, he could still smell the wildflowers. As spring turned to summer, Nathan and Violet's connection deepened. They spent most days together, and their nights were filled with shared dreams that grew increasingly vivid and controlled. The nightmares still came occasionally, but now they faced them together, transforming terror into understanding. One sweltering July evening, they rode out to a secluded spot by the Arkansas River. The water flowed lazily, offering some relief from the heat. They spread a blanket beneath a cottonwood tree and shared a simple picnic. "I've been thinking," Violet said as they watched the river sparkle in the sunlight, "about what's happening between us. The shared dreams, the connection, it's not just coincidence." "What do you think it is?" Nathan asked, reaching for her hand. "I believe some souls are bound together across lifetimes," she replied, intertwining her fingers with his. "And sometimes, when those souls find each other, extraordinary things happen." Nathan considered her words. A year ago, he would have dismissed such notions as fanciful. But now, having experienced the impossible with Violet, he was open to believing in things beyond his understanding. "There's something I need to tell you," Violet continued, her expression growing serious. "I received a letter from Boston yesterday. The university has offered me a position teaching psychology. They're particularly interested in my research on dreams." Nathan felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "When would you leave?" "The term starts in September," she said. "But Nathan, I haven't decided yet." He forced a smile, trying to hide his dismay. "It's a wonderful opportunity. You'd be foolish not to consider it." "Would I?" She searched his face. "What about us? Our connection, our shared dreams, do you think that would continue with hundreds of miles between us?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But I wouldn't ask you to give up your dreams for me. What if you are my dream?" Violet said softly. What if all this finding you, understanding these nightmares together is what I was meant for? Nathan's heart soared at her words, but doubt still nagged at him. You have a brilliant mind, Violet. The world should benefit from it. And it will, she assured him. But perhaps not in Boston. She took a deep breath. I've spoken with my stepfather. He believes Wichita could benefit from someone with my training. Many of the men who returned from the war suffer, as you did. Perhaps I could help them too. Hope blossomed in Nathan's chest. You'd stay? For me? For us, she corrected him. And for the work I could do here. This town is growing, Nathan. It needs more than just cattle and commerce to thrive. Overcome with emotion, Nathan pulled her into his arms. I love you, Violet Summers, he whispered against her hair. I think I've loved you since the moment I saw you struggling with those packages on the street. Violet leaned back to look into his eyes. And I love you, Nathan Grant. In this life, and perhaps in others before it. Their first kiss was gentle, a promise of things to come. As the sun began to set, casting the river in golden light, they sat together in comfortable silence, contemplating a future neither had imagined possible just months before. That night, their shared dream was more vivid than ever. They stood together on Nathan's porch, watching a storm roll across the prairie. But instead of fear, they felt only awe at the power of nature and comfort in each other's presence. Is this the future? Violet asked within the dream. I hope so, Nathan replied. Our future. When they woke the next morning, miles apart in their own beds, both felt the certainty of what they'd experienced. It wasn't just a dream, it was a vision of what could be. Over the next several weeks, they worked together to prepare for Violet's new role in Wichita. Dr. Thompson helped her set up a small office adjacent to his own, where she could see patients suffering from what she called battle fatigue and other nervous conditions. Word spread quickly, and soon she had a small but steady stream of patients, mostly veterans, but also women suffering from melancholy and children with night terrors. Nathan, meanwhile, found that with restful sleep came renewed energy and focus. The ranch began to prosper under his revitalized management. He hired 2 additional hands and expanded his herd, making plans to purchase neighboring land that had long been neglected. As August turned to September, Nathan realized he couldn't imagine his life without Violet. One evening, after closing up her office, he asked her to accompany him on a ride. Where are we going? She asked as they left town behind. You'll see, he replied mysteriously. He led her to a hill overlooking his property, where he'd arranged a surprise. A small table was set with a white cloth, flowers, and a meal prepared by the wife of one of his ranch hands. Lanterns hung from tree branches, casting a warm glow as twilight descended. Nathan, this is beautiful, Violet gasped. Not as beautiful as you, he said, helping her dismount. They enjoyed the meal as the stars began to appear above them. When they had finished, Nathan took Violet's hand and led her to the edge of the hill. Look there, he said, pointing to a flat area near a stand of trees. What do you see? Violet squinted in the fading light. Trees? Grass? I'm not sure what I'm looking for. I see our future, Nathan said softly. A home, built with our own hands. Children playing in the yard. A life free from nightmares and full of shared dreams. Tears glistened in Violet's eyes as she turned to face him. Before she could speak, Nathan dropped to one knee, taking a small box from his pocket. Violet Summers, you entered my life when I was lost in darkness. You showed me that even the deepest wounds can heal with understanding and love. I can't imagine a future without you by my side. He opened the box, revealing a simple gold ring with a small pearl. Would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Yes, Violet whispered, tears now flowing freely. 1,000 times yes. Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms. Their kiss was filled with promise and passion, sealing the commitment they had made to each other. That night, for the first time, they shared not just dreams but a bed, their bodies expressing what words could not. And as they drifted to sleep in each other's arms, they entered the dream world together, walking hand in hand through a house that existed only in their shared vision, a home they would build together, both in dreams and reality. News of their engagement spread quickly through Wichita. Most offered congratulations, though some raised eyebrows at the unconventional match the quiet rancher and the educated Eastern woman. Dr. Thompson hosted a small engagement party, giving his heartfelt blessing to the couple who had found healing in each other. As fall painted the prairie in golds and russets, Nathan and Violet began making plans for their wedding and their future home. They chose a spot on Nathan's property, not far from his current house, but with a better view of the sunset. Together, they drew up plans for a modest but comfortable dwelling with enough room for the family they hoped to have. Construction began in October, with Nathan doing much of the work himself, assisted by his ranch hands and friends from town. Violet would often bring food to the workers and stay to help where she could, her delicate hands soon developing calluses that she wore with pride. Meanwhile, Violet's practice continued to grow. Word of her success with troubled patients had spread beyond Wichita, bringing people from neighboring towns seeking her help. She began teaching other women techniques to calm fearful children and ease their own anxieties. Dr. Thompson watched with pride as his stepdaughter established herself as a respected healer in her own right. The wedding was set for November 18, 1873, at the small church in Wichita. As the day approached, both Nathan and Violet found themselves busier than ever, yet their shared dreams remained a sanctuary where they could meet in perfect peace. 3 nights before the wedding, however, the nightmares returned. Nathan found himself once again on the battlefield, but this time Violet wasn't by his side. He searched frantically for her, calling her name amid the chaos. When he finally spotted her, she was walking toward the shadowy figure that had haunted his dreams for years. "Violet, no!" he cried out, but she couldn't hear him. He woke with a start, his heart pounding. For the first time in months, he was truly afraid. The dream felt like a warning, but of what, he couldn't say. The next morning, he rode to town earlier than usual, needing to see Violet, to assure himself that she was safe. He found her in her office, reviewing patient notes. "Nathan," she said with a smile that faded when she saw his expression. "What's wrong?" "The nightmare," he said simply. "It came back last night." Violet's eyes widened. "For me too, but it was different." They compared their dreams, discovering that while they had both returned to the battlefield, their experiences had diverged. In Violet's dream, she had been trying to reach Nathan, who was walking into danger. "What does it mean?" Nathan asked, pacing the small office. "Why now, after months of peace?" "I'm not certain," Violet admitted, "but I have a theory. These nightmares began as expressions of our deepest fears, your experiences in the war, my loss in the fire. Perhaps now, with our wedding approaching, our minds are confronting a new fear." "Losing each other," Nathan said, understanding dawning. Violet nodded. "It's the one thing I truly fear now, being separated from you." Nathan took her hands in his. "That won't happen. I promise you, Violet." "You can't know that," she said softly. "Life holds no guarantees." "Then we must make each day count," he replied. "And each night, we'll meet in our dreams, reminding ourselves that our connection transcends even our fears." That night, they tried something new. Before sleeping, they each focused intently on creating a safe place in their minds, the home they were building, completed and filled with warmth and love. They agreed to meet there in their dreams, to consciously reject the battlefield and its horrors. It worked. When they met in the dream world, it was in the parlor of their future home. A fire crackled in the hearth, and outside the windows, snow was falling gently, though in the waking world it was still autumn. "We did it," Violet said within the dream, her joy palpable. "We created this together," Nathan agreed, taking in the details, some from his imagination, some from hers, blending into a perfect whole. They spent the dream night exploring their creation, from the kitchen with its cast iron stove to the bedrooms upstairs, including one clearly meant for a child, with a small crib by the window. When they woke the next morning, both felt a renewed sense of purpose. The nightmare had been a test, and they had passed it together. Their connection was stronger than their fears. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp, a perfect November morning. The church was decorated with late autumn flowers and greenery gathered from the prairie. Nearly everyone in Wichita attended, along with friends from neighboring towns and a few of Violet's colleagues from Boston who had made the journey west. Nathan stood at the altar, wearing a new suit that felt stiff and unfamiliar, but his discomfort vanished the moment the church doors opened and Violet appeared on Dr. Thompson's arm. Her dress was simple ivory silk, her hair adorned with small white flowers. To Nathan, she had never looked more beautiful. As she walked toward him, Nathan was struck by the journey that had brought them together. From nightmares to shared dreams, from strangers to soulmates, they had found in each other what neither had dared hope for: understanding, healing, and love that seemed to transcend ordinary experience. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. They exchanged vows they had written themselves, speaking of shared dreams and promises to face whatever darkness might come, together. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Nathan kissed his bride, cheers erupted throughout the church. The celebration continued at Dr. Thompson's home, where tables had been set up in the garden despite the November chill. Lanterns hung from tree branches, casting a golden glow over the festivities. There was music, dancing, and more food than the guests could possibly consume. As the evening wore on, Nathan found a moment alone with his new wife, pulling her away from the crowd and into the quiet of Dr. Thompson's study. "Mrs. Grant," he said, still marveling at the sound of it. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm in the most wonderful dream," Violet replied, her eyes shining. "But I know I'm awake because not even our dreams have been this perfect." Nathan pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a small silver key, placing it in her palm. "What's this?" she asked. "The key to our new home," he told her. "It's not finished yet. The upstairs still needs work, but the main floor is ready. I thought we might spend our first night there, rather than at my old house." Tears glistened in Violet's eyes. "You finished it?" "When?" "The men and I have been working every spare moment," he admitted. "I wanted it to be a surprise." "It's the most wonderful surprise," she whispered, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. Later, as the celebration wound down, Nathan and Violet bid farewell to their guests and rode together to their new home. Though only partially completed, the house already felt welcoming. Nathan had furnished the downstairs with pieces both old and new, and in the bedroom, a large quilt made by the women of Wichita covered the bed. "Welcome home, Violet Grant," Nathan said as he carried her across the threshold. That night, as they lay in each other's arms in their new bedroom, they whispered of dreams for their future children, the growth of the ranch, Violet's work in town. And when sleep finally claimed them, they entered the dream world together, walking hand in hand through a landscape of their own creation, free from the nightmares that had once plagued them. Winter settled over Kansas, bringing snow and bitter cold. The newly married couple spent the season completing their home, enjoying the simple pleasure of building a life together. Nathan continued to expand his ranch operations, while Violet divided her time between her practice in town and creating a warm and inviting home. Their shared dreams became a nightly adventure, sometimes revisiting memories, other times exploring purely imaginary landscapes. Occasionally, the nightmares would attempt to return, but together they had learned to recognize and transform them, turning darkness into light. As winter gave way to spring, Violet made an announcement that filled Nathan with joy. They were expecting a child. The baby was due in November, almost exactly a year after their wedding. "A dream come true," Nathan said, placing his hand on Violet's still flat stomach. "The first of many," she replied, covering his hand with her own. That night, their shared dream took them to the nursery they had created in their dream house, now filled with the sound of a baby's laughter. Though they couldn't see the child clearly, dreams had their limitations. They felt the love that would welcome this new life into the world. As Violet's pregnancy progressed, their connection seemed to deepen even further. Sometimes, during the day, Nathan would suddenly know that Violet needed him, only to return home and find her calling his name. They could sense each other's emotions, even across distances, a phenomenon Violet documented carefully in her ongoing research. Summer brought the cattle drives to Wichita, making it a busier place than usual. Nathan's ranch prospered, and he was able to hire additional help, giving him more time to spend with Violet as her pregnancy advanced. Her practice remained active, though she had begun to see fewer patients, preparing for the time she would need with their child. Dr. Thompson visited often, monitoring his stepdaughter's health with professional care and grandfatherly excitement. "The baby is strong," he assured them during one visit in late August. just like its parents. As autumn painted the prairie once again, Violet's time grew near. She and Nathan had prepared the nursery in their home. Filling it with furniture Nathan had crafted himself and linens Violet had embroidered during quiet evenings. In their dreams, they now often saw their child a boy with Nathan's eyes and Violet's smile. They would wake from these dreams filled with anticipation, counting the days until they would hold their son in their arms. On the morning of November 12, 1874, almost a year after their wedding, Violet felt the first contractions. Nathan sent one of the ranch hands to fetch Dr. Thompson while he helped Violet prepare for the birth they had anticipated for so long. Labor progressed steadily throughout the day and into the evening. Nathan remained by Violet's side, offering comfort and encouragement as Dr. Thompson monitored the birth. As midnight approached, Violet's efforts intensified, and shortly after the clock struck 12, their son entered the world with a robust cry. "He's perfect, Dr." Thompson announced, placing the swaddled infant in Violet's arms. "Samuel," Violet whispered, looking down at their son's face. "Samuel Nathan Grant." Nathan, overcome with emotion, could only nod in agreement as he gazed at his wife and child. This moment, this miracle seemed more vivid and beautiful than even their most profound shared dreams. That night, exhausted but too elated for deep sleep, Nathan and Violet experienced something new. As they dozed beside the cradle where Samuel slept, their dreams connected not just with each other, but with their son. In the dream, they stood together in a sunlit meadow, holding the child between them, feeling his innocent joy as he discovered the world for the first time. When they woke, both knew they had shared not just a dream, but a glimpse into their son's pure, untouched consciousness. It was a gift beyond anything they had experienced before, a family bond that transcended the ordinary. As Samuel grew from infant to toddler, Nathan and Violet discovered that their unusual connection had been passed to their son. The boy rarely experienced nightmares, and when he did, his parents could enter his dreams to comfort him, teaching him from an early age to transform fear into understanding. By his third birthday, Samuel was showing signs of the same intuitive abilities his parents shared. He would sometimes speak of things he couldn't possibly know, or comfort his mother before she even realized she was sad. Nathan and Violet carefully documented these occurrences, building on Violet's earlier research into the nature of consciousness and connection. In the spring of 1878, when Samuel was 3.5, Violet gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Elizabeth Rose. Like her brother, Elizabeth seemed to inherit the family gift, though it manifested differently. While Samuel's dreams were vivid and detailed, Elizabeth's were filled with music and colors that she would try to recreate in her waking hours, even as a very young child. Nathan's ranch had grown into one of the most successful in the region, allowing him to build a larger home for his expanding family. The original house became a guest cottage, often used by Dr. Thompson during his frequent visits or by the occasional researcher who came to consult with Violet on her groundbreaking work. Violet had published several papers on dream theory and consciousness, gaining recognition in academic circles despite the obstacles faced by women in scientific fields. She maintained a small practice in Wichita, but devoted most of her energy to her family and her research, which increasingly focused on the unique abilities she and Nathan had discovered in themselves and their children. In the summer of 1880, when Samuel was 5 and Elizabeth 2, the family traveled east for the first time together. Violet had been invited to speak at a symposium on consciousness at Harvard University, a rare honor for a woman, especially one based in the Western Territories. The journey was long but filled with wonder for the children, who had never ventured far from Wichita. Nathan, too, found himself fascinated by the changing landscapes and the bustling cities they passed through. Though he had once fought in these eastern states, seeing them now, in peacetime, and with his family beside him, was a healing experience. The symposium was a success, with Violet's presentation on shared dreaming and consciousness generating both excitement and skepticism among her colleagues. Some dismissed her theories as feminine fancy, but others recognized the rigorous documentation and careful analysis behind her claims. One evening, after a particularly contentious debate with a prominent neurologist, Violet and Nathan walked through Harvard Yard, their children running ahead of them on the paths between ancient trees. Do you ever regret it? Nathan asked suddenly. Staying in Wichita? You could have had a position at a university like this, been surrounded by minds that challenge you. Violet stopped, turning to face him. Not for a single moment, she said firmly. What we've built together, our family, our work, our understanding of these gifts we share is more valuable than any academic position. Even when your colleagues dismiss your findings, they dismiss what they don't understand, Violet replied with a smile. But that doesn't make it any less real. We know the truth, Nathan. We live it every night in our dreams and every day in the connection we share with our children. Nathan pulled her close, kissing her forehead. You amaze me, Violet Grant. You always have. As you amaze me, she whispered back. My cowboy who couldn't sleep until we learned to dream together. They returned to Wichita with renewed purpose, Violet more determined than ever to document and understand the extraordinary connection their family shared. She began collaborating with researchers across the country and even in Europe, sending detailed reports of their experiences and receiving letters filled with questions and theories in return. Nathan, meanwhile, continued to expand their ranch while taking a more active role in the community. Wichita was growing rapidly, and he found himself increasingly involved in decisions about its development. His quiet wisdom and fair-mindedness made him respected among both the old settlers and the newcomers who were changing the face of the frontier town. As the years passed, Samuel and Elizabeth grew into thoughtful, intuitive children who were aware of their unusual abilities but understood the importance of discretion. Under Violet's guidance, they learned to use their gifts responsibly, often helping other children in town who suffered from nightmares or fears. In 1885, when Samuel was 10 and Elizabeth 7, Violet gave birth to their third child, a son they named William Howard. Like his siblings, William showed signs of the family gift, though his manifested as an extraordinary capacity for empathy, sensing others' emotions with uncanny accuracy, even as an infant. That same year, Nathan completed the final expansion of their home, adding a dedicated space for Violet's research and a large library filled with books on psychology, philosophy, and spirituality. It became a gathering place for thinkers from across the country who were interested in the nature of consciousness and connection. One autumn evening in 1890, as the family sat together on their wide porch watching a spectacular sunset, 17-year-old Samuel asked a question that had been on his mind. Mother, Father, do you think there are others like us? Other families who share dreams? Nathan and Violet exchanged a glance, their silent communication as effortless after nearly 20 years of marriage as it had been at the beginning. We believe so, Violet answered. Your father and I couldn't be the only ones to discover this connection. Through my correspondence, I've heard stories suggesting similar experiences in families across the world. Then why aren't there more studies about it? More acknowledgement, Samuel pressed. Because it challenges what most people believe about the boundaries between minds, Nathan explained. It's easier to dismiss what you can't explain than to reconsider your understanding of reality. Will it always be that way? Elizabeth asked, her artistic sensibility making her particularly sensitive to the limitations of conventional thinking. No, Violet said confidently. Knowledge grows, understanding evolves. What seems impossible today will be studied as fact tomorrow. That's why we document everything, why we continue to reach out to others who might share our experiences. And in the meantime, Nathan added, we live our truth. We use our gifts to help where we can, to understand each other more deeply, to transform nightmares into dreams worth sharing. William, now 5, climbed into his father's lap. Tell us again how you and Mother met, he requested, though he had heard the story countless times. Nathan smiled at Violet, who returned his gaze with the same love and understanding that had sustained them through 2 decades together. Well, it was 1873, and I hadn't had a proper night's sleep in years. As Nathan recounted their story for their children, Violet reflected on the journey they had taken together. From strangers plagued by nightmares to partners who had transformed those dark visions into a shared gift, they had created not just a family, but a legacy of understanding that would continue through their children and beyond. That night, as they had done for nearly 20 years, Nathan and Violet entered the dream world together. They walked through landscapes both familiar and new, sometimes joined by their children, sometimes exploring just the two of them. The nightmares that had once tormented them had been transformed into a unique form of communication, a way of connecting that transcended ordinary experience. In the years that followed, the Grant family continued to grow and evolve. Samuel eventually followed in his mother's footsteps, studying psychology and consciousness at universities in both America and Europe before returning to Kansas to establish his own research center. Elizabeth became a renowned artist whose paintings seemed to capture the very essence of dreams, with colors and forms that spoke directly to the viewer's unconscious mind. William, combining his father's practical nature with his mother's intellectual curiosity, became a physician who integrated traditional medicine with deeper understanding of the mind-body connection. Nathan and Violet, growing older but still deeply connected, watched with pride as their children carried forward the legacy they had begun. Their grandchildren, too, showed signs of the family gift, creating a lineage of dreamers who understood the power of shared consciousness. In 1923, as they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, surrounded by family and friends in the home they had built together, Nathan took Violet's hand, her fingers now gnarled with arthritis, but still perfectly fitted to his. "Half a century," he marveled. "And yet it feels like we've known each other forever." "Perhaps we have," Violet replied, her mind still sharp despite her 80 years. "Perhaps some connections truly do transcend time." That night, their shared dream took them back to where it all began, the streets of Wichita in 1873, where a tired cowboy had helped a young woman with her packages. But this time, they watched the scene as observers, seeing their younger selves with the wisdom of decades lived together. "We were so young," Nathan said within the dream, "so unaware of what lay ahead." "But something in us knew," Violet replied. "Some part of us recognized each other, even then." "The best kind of dream," Nathan said, squeezing her hand. "The kind that comes true." As dawn broke over the Kansas prairie, bathing their bedroom in golden light, Nathan and Violet woke simultaneously, as they had done countless times before. Their eyes met in perfect understanding, their connection as strong in waking as it was in dreams. "Good morning, my love," Nathan whispered. "Good morning," Violet replied, her voice soft but clear. "What shall we dream tonight?" Nathan smiled, knowing that whatever visions the night might bring, they would face them together, as they always had. The nightmares that had once kept him from sleeping had led him to the woman who understood, who shared his dreams, who had helped him transform darkness into light. And in that transformation, they had found not just peace but a love that spanned decades and would, they both believed, continue beyond the boundaries of this life into whatever dreams might come.